YouTube, what it is? It's your boy Gannon, and I'm back with another video. As you can see, this won't be one of them short videos. So I'm just wondering, right? So I'm an old school gamer, right? I mean, old school. My first game that I played religiously was Kung Fu on the NES. You get me? And now I was like, maybe 5. My older brother stuck that Nintendo Entertainment System right in front of me, and I was hooked ever since. I bring that all up because I used to play WWE No Mercy, WCW Backlash, I think it was called, and those old school style of wrestling games. The movements, the animations were so good for those games back then. The player models were crap, of course, because we're talking about the N64, and to deal with the animations, they sacrificed textures, they sacrificed polygon count. They didn't want the game to be under 30 frames, so it was 30 or better. I thought it was 60 frames. And I just remember staring at all those moves that they had, because they had a create a wrestler mode. The game was fire. Those games were fire. They were slightly slow paced because of the mechanics, but they were fire. They were, your hand would be cramping after a good match, because you're always mashing the button to get out of a hold and trying to reverse things. And it was just a great time and a great local multiplayer back then, So y'all kids don't know nothing about local multiplayer, where you have 4 of your friends, including yourself, playing a game and just wilding out and having a great time next to somebody. It wasn't that all that trolling stuff that people do online, Of course, people cheat and use cheap tactics or whatever, but nobody knew them because there was no YouTube to look it up. So it was just way more fun. Oh God, the times, having fun with those games, especially those wrestling games. Smash Brothers, forget about it. That was real good on 64 and GameCube and all that. But anyway, let me circle back to the main point. Is those wrestling games were considered non-simulation arcade games, but they had such great animations, and it looked realistic. It moved realistic. It was obviously motion capture, but more keyframes. What I mean by keyframes is you actually had an artist animate the frames. So I think they had some motion capture, but most of it was keyframed animations. Regardless of the fact, the game seemed like a simulation. Like if you put up WWE Simulation, which I don't really like. I don't like those games. And you put up against the WWE or WWF No Mercy and the WCW wrestling games, and ask somebody which one was simulation, which one was arcade, I don't think people will be able to understand a huge difference between the two. And I still don't understand how a wrestling game could be simulation, because wrestling itself is a simulation of a fake fight, So I would think it'll be, no matter what, be arcade. But I think AEW, their developers, the new AEW All Elite Wrestling, which their wrestling is kind of fire too. I've been trying to get into it. It's just so hard to get into much of anything, when you have a child and you're working 2 jobs and all this type of stuff. So it's really hard. But AEW, as you know, they have a wrestling game coming out, and their game seems to be. I know THQ Nordic is publishing it, but the developers are the same developers who helped create those old school No Mercy, Backlash, all those wrestling games that I grew up on and loved. They're making AEW. So I'm wondering if they laid the blueprint for something like the new 2K NFL non-simulation games. Because I swear, I don't see where it's so arcadey that it's obviously arcadey. It really blurs the line of arcade and simulation. What constitutes a simulation? I don't know. I honestly, I don't know. For a sports game, I could know how to make a simulation game or what makes a simulation game, but if you're really trying to blur the line, I really don't know. And if AEW, if their developers are saying we're making a more arcadey wrestling game rather than the simulation game that is WWE, the current WWE games made by 2K, which are simulation games, no matter how good or bad they are. What constitutes a simulation game versus a non-simulation game or arcade game? So I really, really wonder, what does that entail? You know, we'll see what the AEW developers, we'll see what it means to them. Arcade, simulation, whatever. Maybe they laid out the blueprint many years ago of what non-simulation looks like instead of a straight up arcade game. Because, you know, our straight up arcade game, everybody ultimately thinks of NBA Jam, NBA Playgrounds, NFL Blitz, even NFL Blitz the League. I will believe that was a more arcade game, but you know, they had some real life elements in there, I guess, you know, like football and tackles and whatever. But really, I wonder, how can 2K blur the line between a simulation and a non-simulation game? Notice they didn't say arcade, they said non-simulation. So, you know, we'll see, and that's all I have to really say. And if you want, you could check out those old school wrestling games. I wish y'all played them. If anyone played those games, come on, reminisce with me in the comments. You get me? But anyway, that's it. I just really wanted to bring that out. Yeah, the AE developers are saying we want to make more of a arcadey game or non-simulation game. So, we'll see what happens. Peace out.